That's the story of Russia's invasion. More than 500 days compressed into a few seconds. It tells you the whole story. Ukraine launched a major counterattack last year. They had some success. They liberated areas in the south and the east. But that was in November 2022. Since then, very little has changed. I know the famous Russian winter has not arrived yet, but the front lines are frozen. So what are both sides doing? They're betting on unconventional attacks. We saw one in Crimea today. This important bridge between Russia and Crimea was attacked. It is called the Kerch bridge. 2 blasts were reported early on Monday. Russia says 2 people were killed. They have blamed Ukraine and the West for this attack. And what has Ukraine said? Well, nothing so far. It's been their strategy since last year's counteroffensive, either reject or ignore Russia. Today's attack led to traffic disruptions on the bridge. It's a key route between Russia and Crimea. Without it, moving supplies becomes difficult. So the bridge has strategic value, and this is the second time the Kerch bridge has been attacked. The first was in October 2022. Even then, Ukraine denied attacking it. Last year, the Crimean bridge attack was followed by a counteroffensive, a successful one. So could this attack be a repeat? Well, this time the counterattack is already underway. Ukraine began the operation last month. Just one problem though. It's all gone wrong. Reports say Ukraine has lost 20% of their weapons in the first weeks. 20% wiped out. And remember, these were not Ukraine's own weapons. These were weapons given to them by NATO. So what did Ukraine do? Reports say they have paused. They're rethinking their strategy. Who knows? Maybe sabotage is the new one. If so, it seems to have backfired because Russia says it has decided to halt the Black Sea grain deal. Some context here. The Black Sea grain deal was struck last year. It permitted Ukraine to ship food grains despite the war. That deal was set to expire today. Ukraine wanted to extend it, but Russia has refused. Now, Moscow did not link it to the Crimea attack, but I'm guessing it did not help. What does this decision mean for all parties involved? Ukraine could end up losing a lot of money, no grain shipments, so no payments. The rest of the world could be in trouble too. Ukraine is one of the biggest grain producers in the world. They make up around 9% of all wheat exports. If that wheat is stuck in ports, prices will rise. There will be more inflation. Until now, the Black Sea grain deal has kept things at bay. Food prices had fallen 20% after this deal was signed last year. So if Russia does not make a U-turn, grain importers will be in trouble, especially those in Africa, which makes you wonder, what is the point of all this fighting? How does all of it end? Well, one thing's for sure, the war has single-handedly discredited most so-called strategic experts. They said Russia would win within weeks. It's day 509. They said Putin would be weakened by the Wagner mutiny. Turns out the Wagner chief had a meeting with the Russian president, and that 2 days after the mutiny. My point is, forget the experts. Look at the battlefield reality. Russia is not losing this war at any cost, but neither is Ukraine winning. It has reached a violent and costly stalemate. The problem is, neither side will admit it. The U.S. National Security Advisor was asked this question on Sunday. Has the war reached a stalemate? That was the question. He said no. But the counteroffensive is hard. And what is Russia saying? President Putin is showing appetite for more escalation. He has threatened to use cluster bombs in Ukraine. Listen to this.
I'd like to note that the Russian Federation has a sufficient stockpile of different types of cluster munitions. Different types. We haven't done this before. We didn't use them and we didn't have to, despite of a known lack of munitions at a certain period of time. We didn't do it. But of course, if they are used against us, we reserve the right to take reciprocal action.
So what next? Now would be the right time for talks to discuss terms with Russia. Both sides are reeling from battleground losses. Their people and economies are tired. Now, I know what you're thinking. If the idea was to talk, why wait until now? Why not in March last year when Russia invaded? Because now Ukraine has sent a strong and clear message. It has shown that it's not a pushover. With the right weapons, Ukrainians can and will defend themselves. And Russia knows this pretty well by now. And Kyiv knows that Putin was not bluffing. He was serious about the NATO red line then, and he's serious about it now. Both sides need to start engaging. Because this war is not going to be settled in the battlefield. It needs a political settlement.